Bishop George Johnson Jr. We are live. Take 10. I'm so excited, guys. You guys are here, man. I know my wife is your #1 fan. She could not make it today. You know, we have a sick child in the house. Resisting temptation in marriage. You know, here's one of the things that I want to explain. A lot of times people don't think that my wife and I deal with temptation in a marriage. We've been counseling couples for 15 years now. And even before I started pastoring, I was over the couples ministry at my home church. And when we would do those particular things, we would actually do family events and stuff. So couples would reside in or confide in us in a lot of things. But a lot of times people always say, well, you and your wife, y'all don't have to deal with that. Guys, we are not devil-proof. The same things that you have to deal with, we have to deal with them as well. But we fight, we go through it, we kind of go overcome it, but we go through it as well. So temptation is real. It's just as real as I'm sitting here. It is real, and it is ripping families apart. So we have to learn how to resist temptation in a marriage. I remember years ago, now I give my own personal testimony. Years ago, a couple of weeks ago, I go to this place and they do my feet and everything like that, and they massage my feet. And as the lady was doing my feet, she started coming on to me, trying to get me to talk to her, get me to date her. She said, talking and everything like that. And I said, listen, I had to correct that quickly, because I am not going to risk my marriage on a nail tech. I'm not going to do that. But I'm just telling you that story to let you know that just as you guys have to fight temptation, we have to fight it in our home as well. We have to fight it. But the Bible says, the background text for this is James chapter 4, verse 7. It says, submit yourself to God. Resist the enemy, and he will flee. But what I found is marriages are not in a state of resistance. They're in a state of non-resistance. And they give in to this stuff through flirtatious behavior. And we're going to get into that later on into the lesson. So let's talk about this. What does it mean? What does it mean to resist? Because we're talking about resisting temptation. What does it mean to resist? Resist means to withstand the action and the effort of something. To withstand the action or effect of something. So if something is coming against you, to withstand it, to come against it, to fight against it. Not to let it come on and treat it as a welcoming behavior, but to fight against it. And what are you succeeding in ignoring the attraction of something? So you don't have to resist something that you're not attracted to. Let me say that again. You don't have to resist something that you're not attracted to. The reason you have to resist it is because something on the inside is pulling you toward that. The evil is pulling you toward that, and you have to resist it. So we are resisting temptation. So what is temptation? Temptation is a desire to do something that is unwise or wrong. That's what temptation is. It's a desire to do something that's unwise and wrong. What I found is a lot of couples, they're not resisting, but they're giving in to the temptation. I'm going to open up with a story. This is a very powerful story here. This story is about an Eskimo colony that lives in Alaska, and they have a very unique way on how they capture wolves. It's very unique. What they do is they take a huge knife, a huge razor-sharp knife, and they dip the knife all the way up to the handle in seal blood. Seals, seals that swim in the ocean, seals. They take the knife and they dip it all the way in up to the handle in seal's blood. And then when they dip it, they take it out and they sit it outside in the snow and let it freeze. And then when it freezes, they repeat the same thing. They take the knife and they dip it again in seal's blood, and then they take it back out and they let it freeze. They repeat this about 7 times. And then they take, after the 7th attempt, they take the knife and they set it outside, bury it in the snow, all the way up to just the blade is exposed and the handle is covered. and they just leave it there. And what you have is a seal blood popsicle. That's basically what it is. It's a seal's blood popsicle. And they sit it there, and the wolf comes, and he's sniffing, and he picks up on the seal's blood, and he goes and he begins to lick the knife, the razor sharp knife, because it's really thick with seal's blood and it's frozen, and he begins to lick it, and it's so good to him, he licks it, and because of the cold air, now his tongue becomes numb. And so he continues to lick, and he continues to lick, till now he's licking the blade, and the blade is so razor sharp that now it's sawing his tongue in half. But he can't tell the difference between the seal blood and his own blood. So he continues to lick it and taste it and lick it, but he's not getting stronger, he's getting weaker. And he continues to lick, and it becomes so engulfing and so tasteful, he never stops till he licks for the very last time, and he collapses, bleeds to death, and dies. That's how temptation is. That's how temptation is. The enemy puts something out there, and it seems so attractive, and he teases you, and you start licking it, and licking it, and licking it, and licking it, and to the point that you can't now tell the desire between what you actually feel and what is right. And we call that in the church a reprobate mind. You come to a point where you don't care whether it's right or whether it's wrong. You just want to feel the desire that you have. And you're licking and you're licking and you're tasting and you're playing and you're torturing and you're just touching and you're just sampling and you're doing all these things till you get over to a place now where you collapse in the death of your marriage, in the death of your home, in the death of your career. Guys, this thing is real. Temptation is destroying homes. It's destroying careers. You have to make sure that you resist temptation. You have to resist it. I don't care how or what they say. You have to resist and stand against it and fight with every part of your life, because what's hanging in the base is your life. What's hanging in the balance is your career. What's hanging in the balance is your future. But your refusal to yield to what God is saying and resist, you're just like that wolf. You keep licking and you're licking and you're licking. Now you get to a point where you can't tell the difference between what is right and what is wrong. And you ultimately lick yourself into a death of an affair. You have to make sure you be able to pay attention to the difference between the two. Okay, I want to give you 5 common myths of temptation and infidelity, and then we'll get into the lesson. 5 common myths when it comes to temptation and infidelity. Myth number 1: men and women are naturally monogamous. It's just, you're just born naturally desiring one person. You're in a monogamous relationship. This is very funny because we took my brother out last night for his birthday, his 30th birthday. We was hanging out. We was all sitting around the table. It was a bunch of guys just hanging out. And one of the guys at the table said, well, man, you know, in the Bible, so-and-so had 3 and 4 wives. Why can't we have 3 and 4 wives now? And different things. We got into a deep conversation about that. And it's amazing to me that people just think when you get married, you're going to automatically just click and become this monogamous person. That is not true, because sex is sold all around you. Cheating is sold all around you. It's all around you. If you go right now, turn on a commercial, it's going to have some kind of sexual undertone to it. If you watch, I guess the number 1 show now on cable will be Power. I don't watch it. I don't like it. But well, I can't say I don't like it. I've just never seen it. My brother's trying to get me to start watching it, and I may start watching it pretty soon. But I do watch the Have and the Have-Nots. Tyler Perry, shout out. You see this video? I love the show, Have and Have Nots. I'm your biggest fan. I love it. So I do watch that, and within a moment of you just watching the show, sex, relationships, that's going to be sold to you, and it's going to sort of attract you. So men and women are not naturally monogamous. You have to fight for your marriage. That's why the purpose of this series. That's why I'm teaching resisting temptation, because you're not naturally that way. You're pulled to cheat. It's a natural inclination to be attracted to the opposite sex. That's why we take couples to premarital counseling. We do not recommend having friends of the opposite sex outside of your marriage. Somebody that's just my friend. And then y'all going out to dinner, y'all talking and different things like that. It turns into something that you can't get yourself out of. Number two, is this true or false? Mostly men initiate affairs. Is that true or false? Let me ask my film guy. Is that true or false? Men initiate affairs. Is that true or false? False? Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. With ever-growing technology right now, men and women, it's about equal, 50-50. Both men and women initiate affairs. Number three, after an affair, the couple never makes it. Is that true or false?
True.
False.
Okay. After
an affair, the couple never makes it. That's false. Generally, after an affair, within a marriage, the couple generally, statistics shows that the couple generally comes out stronger. We're not recommending having an affair now. We're not saying that. But we said going through counseling and different things like that, the couple generally comes out stronger. Number four, internet sex is not considered an affair. True or false? Now, millennials, how millennial thinks. Let's look at how internet sex is not considered an affair. Now, what I'm talking about when I say internet sex, let me just define this. Sending pictures of your sexual body parts, texting different hearts and emojis to another person, sending provocative text to a person of an opposite sex. Is that an affair, true or untrue?
I plead the fifth.
Okay, biblically speaking, that is an affair. But most millennials don't see that as an affair. But that is an affair. That is an affair. You are at in the beginning stages of going into something very dangerous. We're going to talk about that in this study. Number five, this is the last one. We only have about 5 minutes. An affair means there is a serious problem in the relationship. True or false?
False.
Good job. Mm-hmm. Good job. Good job. An affair means that there's something seriously wrong with the relationship. That is false. That's why we're teaching this series. We're not saying that something is going wrong in your relationship, but the enemy is busy. One of our favorite scriptures, my wife says, we said the enemy is he's not a lion, but he's like a roaring lion. He's seeking whom he may destroy in your marriage. So you have to guard your marriage and fight for it, just like your very life depends on it. 3 areas couples have to fight temptation in. 3 areas, and this is what this study is going to focus on over the next 4 weeks. Hopefully I'll be able to get into point number 1 before we get off here. 3 areas that a couple has to fight against and resist temptation. Number 1, affairs. Number 2, anger. And number 3, addictions. Let me say that again. 3 areas where couples have to resist temptation: affairs, anger, and addictions. There are 6 type of affairs. This is what we're going to talk about today. I'm probably going to only get to number 1. 6 type of affairs. Number 1, an emotional affair. Number 2, a lusting affair. Number 3, I'll show you affair. Number 4, just in the head affair. Number 5, a picture and video texting affair. And then number 6, an all-in affair. All-in affair. Let's talk about, and we'll close with number 1 because we're not going to be able to get to all of them today. We'll finish up next week, okay? Let's talk about an emotional affair. An emotional affair happens when one person, both male or female, is not getting certain types of attention that they desire in the relationship that they're in. So what they start doing is they start seeking for that emotion or something to trigger that emotion outside of the relationship. Number 1, flirtatious emails. You know those emails that it doesn't have a straight up sexual tone to it, but if you can read it below it, it's something sexual about it. That's a flirtatious email, a flirtatious text. So I have to say text now because, you know, my generation, if you're 40, you email. If you're 40 and younger, you probably text. Okay? So you send flirtatious text to the person, and it have sexual undertones to it. It have flirtatious undertones to it. You're not stopping behavior at the onset of it. So you're looking and you like the voice that you're hearing. Number 2, cell phone text. I talk about that. Number 3, harmless working lunches. You have to watch this one. Harmless working lunches. You know, you're sitting down and you're talking to the person over lunch and the conversation goes too far. It starts out just being a working lunch, but then that working lunch once a week turns into twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a week. You got to make sure you're careful of that. Number 5, flirtatious comments. Boy, you look good in that suit coat. Boy, you look good. Your response should be, my wife just told me that this morning. But if your wife hadn't told you that, your wife, you need to start telling your husband that. We're going to do that. So how do you overcome emotional affairs? Okay, we'll close with this. How do you overcome emotional affairs? Go back to the story I told you about that wolf. When he's licking that blade. Sometimes the text just starts out just flirtatious. But if you don't cut it off quickly and you continue to engage in that conversation, it's going to ultimately lead to face-to-face conversations, on the phone conversation, meeting somewhere privately conversations. So you have to cut it off immediately. When you know that they went too far, you need to cut it off right then. You need to make sure that you stop it right when it happens. If your spouse cannot read the text, then the text has went too far. If you with a clear conscience can't show your spouse the text or your children the text, then it's went too far. That's how you know it's too far. Somebody always asks, well, how do you know if it's too far? If you can't take the phone and say, look what so-and-so just sent me, then it's too far. It's too far. You're trying to hide something. You're trying to cover it up. So you need to detach yourself from it. Number 2, you need to invest the desired behavior that you're seeking in your own marriage. So if you're seeking compliments, if you're seeking compliments, you need to start complimenting your spouse. Well, my husband don't compliment me. My wife don't compliment me. Well, the Bible says in the book of Proverbs, if you sow a compliment, you'll get a compliment. So you need to start sowing a compliment. Tell your husband, baby, you're looking really good today. Start stroking his ego. Husband, start stroking your wife's ego. Stroke them up, baby. Nobody else. I tell couples this all the time. If you don't tell your wife she look good, somebody gonna tell her. Wife, if you don't tell your husband he looks good, somebody's gonna tell him. So you need to make sure that you're never too busy to take the time to sow a compliment. Number 3, replace the desired behavior with something else. Okay, so what am I saying with that? If you're in a situation and you know that you're having that lunch and you have to, or just say you meeting up at the gym, and now it has went too far. Now we're meeting up at the gym, and now it's no longer we're meeting up at the gym working out. Now we're meeting up at the gym and we're talking, we're complimenting each other, we're flirting with each other. You need to replace that with something else. Go to another gym. Go somewhere else. Because what you're doing, you're flirting with the behavior that's going to ultimately end in death.